Captain Midnight.
There's a scene about halfway through Deadpool 2 that I think sums up everything I like about the movie. If you've seen the film, there's probably no way you're gonna forget it. It's the moment when the members of the newly formed X-Force jump out of a plane and start dying off one by one. This is the Deadpool franchise at its best, I think. Unexpected, crude, kind of sad, and of course, really funny. I'm not sure if the rest of the movie lives up to that gag, but I'll give it this. It tries really, really hard to. I like Deadpool 2. At times, I really liked it. But I think the character himself presents some interesting and unique challenges when adapting him to the big screen. Ryan Reynolds may be the perfect Wade Wilson, but crafting an actual screenplay around that character is pretty tough, and I think Deadpool 2 is a good example of why.
But when I'm through with you, your mind will never recover.
A few minutes after X-Force's ill-fated parachute jump, we see Deadpool looking under his legs while on the hood of a speeding car. And I think it kind of hit me in that moment who this character reminds me of more than anyone else. Bugs Bunny. That may seem kind of weird, but hear me out. While Deadpool is obviously much more aimed at adults than Bugs is, they still have a ton in common. Both are fun because they're forces of chaos, constantly breaking the fourth wall and talking directly to the viewer.
I know it all the time.
They both always seem in control and desperately making it up as they go along at the same time. And both somehow manage to feel like goofy underdogs despite usually coming out on top. And, maybe most importantly, both characters draw a lot of appeal from what they're not. Bugs Bunny, to children of the 1940s and 50s, was so great in part because he wasn't the safe, inoffensive corporate mascot Mickey Mouse. He felt more dangerous and unpredictable than Mickey could ever hope to be. Similarly, Deadpool 2 really goes out of its way to express just how different the character is from Fox's other big superhero property, the X-Men. Really taking digs at how stuffy and old-fashioned that franchise can be. But here's the big difference between Bugs Bunny and Deadpool, I think. Most of the rabbit's best pieces of work are less than 10 minutes long. Sure, he starred in some live-action movies, but the character really thrives in a shorter format, where his anarchy and irreverence aren't asked to hold a lot of complex characterization or emotional stakes. Deadpool, at least Ryan Reynolds' version, doesn't have that luxury. He's asked to be both Bugs Bunny and a traditional hero expected to carry a full-length film. And to give the Deadpool movies credit, they do this pretty well, but it's when things get emotional that the cracks in the film start to show, I think.
Time to reach out and touch someone.
Like the first film, Deadpool 2 has a tough trick that it needs to pull off. It needs to be weird, meta, and as funny as a great comedy, while also still having the emotional stakes of a more traditional superhero story. And in both cases, but especially in Deadpool 2, I think it succeeds a lot more at the first part. Deadpool 2 is a really funny movie. Maybe not all the jokes land, but they come so fast and so unexpectedly that I was laughing pretty much throughout. And if that's the only metric you want to judge Deadpool 2 on, then I think it definitely succeeded. But that wasn't all it was trying to accomplish. It was also telling a story of loss, abuse, and, like many blockbusters before it, about the formation of a family. And that, I think, is where it's on shakier ground. Take Marina Baccarin's character Vanessa. I like Baccarin in the role, and I think her scenes with Reynolds are usually funny and charming, but once the actual gears of the plot start turning, her character always gets sidelined. The first film had her get kidnapped, and Deadpool 2 ups the ante by killing her, but by the end, both times she's fine. This is kind of frustrating, not just because it would be cool to see Baccarin actually get to play Copycat in some form, but also because it just feels like a cheap way to give Deadpool's journey some emotional stakes. Once is okay, I guess, but going to that well twice? Come on, it's not exactly the shock that Deadpool 2's opening credits seem to think it is. Because so far, that's all her character has really existed to do. But I don't want to give the impression that I thought all the plot stuff didn't work, because that's not really true either. Far more interesting than Wade having to save Vanessa yet again, I thought, was his growing friendship with Colossus. As a big Colossus fan, I kind of dismissed his appearance in the first movie, honestly thinking it was kind of a one-dimensional take on the character. But Deadpool 2 really proved me wrong here, and I really liked how they used him. Colossus is the perfect character to be the face of the old school X-Men, because he's just so earnest honest and uncynical. So he contrasts really well in a movie filled with sarcasm and smartasses. I really like how even though he's the butt of a lot of jokes, he also effectively serves as kind of the heart and conscience of the X-Force here. Cable and Domino were also very good inclusions, I thought, pretty distinct and funny in their own ways. And if there's a common theme between Deadpool's team, the new and the old, it's that they're all kind of unimpressed with Wade Wilson. Sure, they maybe like him deep down, but they're not exactly fans of his antics. This is smart for a few reasons. One, it allows them to play the straight man to Deadpool's over-the-top personality, a classic setup for any comedy. And two, maybe most importantly, it allows the movie to acknowledge that Deadpool is kind of obnoxious. And if there wasn't someone around to roll their eyes at him, I think it might be hard to take him in such large doses. I'm a fan of the way they built this new team, and I'm looking forward to seeing the team reunite when and if Deadpool 3 ever gets made.
説明しよう。俺ちゃんことデッドプールさんは
But then there's the kid. Okay, this is where things might get a little dicey for me because here's the thing. I just don't like him. I'm sorry, they asked this kid actor to carry a lot of the movies on his shoulders, even giving him a lot of punchlines, and I just don't think he could pull it off. He wasn't terrible or anything, but asking him to yell stuff like "damn it feels good to be a gangster" was pretty cringeworthy, for me at least. It made sense why Deadpool would want to save him, but the character was just so flat and annoying that I couldn't bring myself to care much. But I know that's not the case for everyone. Maybe I just have an irrational hatred for child actors, I don't know. So in the end, Deadpool 2 was a mixed bag. Really clever and subversive in some places, and very predictable in others. Wade Wilson is a fan favorite for a reason, and I don't think anyone could bring him to life as well as Ryan Reynolds has. But in some ways, I can't help but feel like Deadpool 2 is trying to have its cake and eat it too, subverting superhero films while also, at its core, being a very traditionally plotted superhero movie. And I kind of wish the franchise would stop riding the fence so much and either embrace far weirder and more bizarre stories like nothing we've seen from a superhero movie before, or going a less wacky direction and treating Deadpool and his world with more grounded humanity. There's examples of both kind of Deadpool stories working in comic form, so maybe they could in film as well. Bugs Bunny wasn't created to carry entire feature films, despite having to do so a few times. And neither was Deadpool, and I think it speaks to the skill and talent of Ryan Reynolds and the various writers and directors that these movies work at all. Creating a Deadpool movie seems really difficult, and there is a reason it took so long to get off the ground. But after 2 solid movies, I really hope the franchise decides to go into a bolder direction when they move on to number 3.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.